Oh my gosh! Oh, no!
Now we are.
It's a funny joke. What's my favorite toe?
No.
What a weird question. Who would ask that? Hi, everybody. I'm Father Tim. This is 10 Questions with Father Tim. It's good to be back with you this week. So, last week, Father Michael, I don't know what that was. I got, this bag pulled over my head. I was tied up and thrown in the back of this. It was a motorcycle. It was like a motorcycle gang, I think. So I'm sorry, but I'm back. I'll never leave you again.
We missed you. It was funny, though.
A lot of people are asking about a podcast. Here's the thing, guys. I would love to do a podcast because I love to talk. Father Michael and I would probably both do it. We'd bring on a guest. However, we need a little bit higher end equipment to do a good podcast because, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to overdo it. So if you want a podcast, I need you to vote with your dollars. And to get the equipment that we need to start to be able to have 4 people having conversation at once, you need about $3,500. So if you want a podcast, go online. Nicole's going to put a link somewhere
Down below.
And Cheryl's going to have that one-time donation fund, and just in the little memo, write podcast. If you want a podcast, $3,500.
Yeah. If we can raise $3,500, we can do the podcast. But if we don't get that much,
I'm not just going to spend that money for podcasting stuff because that would be irresponsible.
We'll keep you updated on how much more we need.
But
right now we're at 0.
If, for instance, you work at C.W. Matthews and you like watching my videos and,
donate.
I also need to have a road built, C.W. Matthews.
Anyway, if you can donate at the link below. If you have equipment that would be useful to us, you can reach out to Father Tim.
Or Nicole.
And we'll talk. Or me, I guess. Yeah, sure. Okay. A lot of questions this week.
Oh, good.
Actually, just kidding. It's 10. It is.
Like always.
So, somebody wants to know, how do you feel about a petition going around for Bobby Bowden to become a saint?
Petition for Bobby Bowden to become a saint.
Is he even Catholic?
I don't think he's Catholic. I met, when I was a kid at St. Jude, he was the Dodgers coach, maybe, or who was that guy? Maybe it was Tommy Lasorda. Anyway, Bobby Cox was a good coach for the baseball, for the Braves.
We're not talking about Bobby Cox, right?
Didn't you say Bobby Cox?
Bobby Bowden.
Oh my gosh! Oh, no! No! Sorry, I thought you were asking me a question about something that I liked.
He apparently has a stained glass window at Doak Campbell Stadium. He's the greatest college football coach.
The Florida State Criminals. Okay, the greatest college football coach is
Kirby Smart. Go down.
Is Steve Spurrier. Everybody knows that Steve Spurrier is the best coach. With his visor.
In short, the way that you feel about that is...
I would maybe support Bobby Cox being canonized. But is he still alive, Bobby Cox, or did he die recently?
I have no idea. I'm not a Braves fan. Next question. What is your favorite wine?
What is my favorite wine?
Do you drink wine?
Yeah, I like Italian wines, like Barolo or Montepulciano, d'Abruzzo.
Sweet wine?
Ugh, no! Disgusting.
Okay, so...
Full body, very tanniny. If it tastes like sand in your mouth, that's the kind of wine that I like.
What's your favorite memory from seminary?
So the apostolic nuncio, actually I think it was before it was the nuncio, he was the apostolic delegate from the Vatican, was the chancellor of the seminary, because we were a pontifical seminary. And we had this bronze bust of Cardinal Ciccignani. His name was Ameletto Ciccignani. And he was in the hallway on the way to the library. And this was a tradition of college seminarians that I, of course, carried into graduate level, was that when you'd walk by him, you'd rub his nose for good luck. His nose was real shiny. But if you really needed help, you'd maybe kind of pick the nose too a little bit. But that's probably one of my positive memories of seminary. We got into a lot of trouble. In fact, our senior prank was we took the bust of Cardinal Cicognani. I think the class before me, they buried him outside with just his head sticking out. It was funny.
When Jesus appeared to everyone after his resurrection, were all of his wounds from his scourging and the crown of thorns visible to everyone, or were only the nail wounds in his hands and feet visible? Why?
Yeah, we normally only talk about the glorious wounds, the 5 glorious wounds, the nails in his hands and his feet, and of course the spear puncture in the side. And that's there again to remind us that he's human. But no, I don't think there's ever any talk of like the scourging marks or the crown of thorns marks. It's just the nails in the side.
So we don't know if they were visible.
Yeah, I don't know, but also like
Scripture doesn't reference it.
Scripture doesn't say anything about it. It's not depicted in art. There's no talk about it in the tradition of the church. It's just the 5 glorious wounds. But good question.
Who is your favorite pope and why?
Who's my favorite pope? Pius X is pretty cool.
I knew you were going to say that.
Pope St. Pius X. I saw him.
You saw him?
Well, his body.
Okay.
Multiple times. It's in an altar at St. Peter's Basilica. Okay. He's actually the co-patron of our archdiocese. High school is named that I went to is named in his honor, and he did a couple of things. He lowered the age of Holy Communion, which is why we have this problem where we give the sacraments out of order now, and confirmation is later. We're trying to fix that, particularly here at St. Clair. But he also condemned the heresy of modernism, which he said basically was a summation of all of the heresies prior, and basically it's just kind of us trying to declare ourselves God. So that was good. Priests used to actually have to take an oath against modernism. We don't anymore.
That's a shame.
I wish we did, because modernism's bad.
Is there a specific apostolic letter where he talks about?
Pascendi Dominici Gregis. It's an encyclical.
Great.
On the doctrine of the modernists.
You should read it if you have time. Okay, next question. Any chance of more Latin singing like the Sanctus and Agnus Dei?
You know, I get a lot of feedback about that. After Pentecost, in a couple of weeks, just over a week from today, we'll be back in ordinary time, and we'll go back to the Mass setting that we were doing prior to Lent. I forget what it's called. It's a Polish Mass setting, though. The Gloria is in English, the Memorial Acclamations in English, but the Sanctus and Agnus Dei are in Latin, and of course the Kyrie is not Latin, that's Greek. So yeah, you know, we are the Latin rite of the Church, and Latin is our mother language that unites us. And the Second Vatican Council, in the Constitution on the liturgy, very clearly says Catholics should know the responses in Latin. Vatican II never called to get rid of Latin. So, you know, it's interesting. Young people, they're more attracted to the Latin, I think. Perhaps some older folks, you know, because all the changes that they experienced in the 70s, you know, and maybe even priests told them Latin's bad, we shouldn't do it. But young people really like tradition. Tradition is what draws young people in. And it's really interesting to see the number of people converting to Catholicism today. They're drawn because it's stable, because it's not of the world. It's this ancient institution founded by Christ. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Little note. All the quiet prayers that the priest says by himself, prayers offered on your behalf to God. I say those in Latin. Primarily, well, one, because I think there's something important about praying in the language of the church, you know, making it so that the angels don't have to translate for God so that he understands, of course. That was a joke. It's a funny joke. But going back and forth between English and Spanish, it's nice to have something that kind of unifies me in my prayer.
What is an incorruptible?
What is an incorruptible? So we have saints that are incorruptible. Padre Pio. I think
there's a lot.
Somebody told me that when Pope St. John Paul II was being canonized after his beatification. They don't embalm popes just to make sure that, if they're incorrupt or not. So they said that when they brought then Blessed John Paul II up from the crypt below the St. Peter's Basilica, that there was a stench, and everybody was like, well, he's not incorrupt. And then they put him in his new home in an altar and sealed it. So uncorrupt saints, they usually put like a mask over their face. It's not like they look like, they're alive. They don't decay.
St. Therese is one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
There's a lot of saints that are incorruptibles.
Yep.
To answer the question, because Father Tim didn't, it's a saint whose body.
Yeah, whose body doesn't decay. I saw St. Catherine of Siena's shrunken head in Siena. Definitely not incorrupt.
Just a little miracle from God to affirm our faith. Okay, what's your favorite childhood memory?
So, my parents recently moved out of the home that they've lived in since the late 70s and raised 4 kids in, and never having moved, they never got rid of anything. So my mom got me this box of stuff. It was like memories and whatnot. I found this notebook kind of thing from when I was in kindergarten, and every week my teacher would write a letter home, and then my mom or my dad, or in some cases my sister, would write a letter back to the teacher. It was kind of fun to read. That talked about how I had this friend Brian, and we didn't behave well, and trying to learn how to channel my energy to not, be destructive. But one of the things in there was written by my dad, and he talked about how we went to Malibu Grand Prix, which is actually, it doesn't exist anymore. It's just south of here, where the former BrandSmart is. But I used to love going there with my dad and my brothers and driving the race cars. That was a very enjoyable memory. I mentioned in the previous question, when I saw St. Catherine of Siena's shrunken head, I got to go to Italy when I was 6 years old because my dad was working over there, and we traveled all over the country. That was really cool.
Speaking of Father Tim's childhood, we dug up some archives.
Yeah. My mom and my sister, they made this shrine to me of receiving the sacraments. So here's me at First Communion with Monsignor O'Connor, and you know what? I think that's Brian that I was talking about that we would get in trouble with.
All of the friends.
This is my first cat that was my cat. His name was Skeeter. Here's kindergarten. I was in the Pious Players, so I played Linus in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I was the Youth of the Year.
Oh wait, I didn't know that.
So, of course. What would you expect? I had a perfect youth group attendance record. Cardinal Gregory.
Wait, is that when you were a seminarian?
That was when I was a seminarian. Yep, that was an anniversary mass at St. Jude. I think when we went to Italy as kids, there we were with our cool parachute, windbreakers, and
your family actually does look
I think
cool.
My mom probably had a fanny pack on. That's me as a baby.
That's nice.
That's me as a pilot.
No.
I was wearing
That's backwards.
I know. I got really creative. This was a Boeing 767-400ER. It was right when they were brand new and they were testing them on the short. I didn't realize what an awesome plane that is, and I was obsessed with 757s in high school, so I loaded the picture into Paint, Microsoft Paint, because that's where my technology and photoshopping ends, and I painstakingly painted my scout shirt white, and then I painted the epaulets. Yeah, if you look real close, you can tell that they're very crooked.
Now I can tell.
Yeah, I know.
Not real.
Yeah, but and I even changed the 6 on the 767 yoke to a 5, so it was a 757.
Oh my gosh!
And I assume that this was me, probably sitting in a high chair from the 70s that was probably very dangerous, but because I was the 4th kid, it was okay, no one cares. It was rough to be the 4th child. A lot of suffering.
2 more questions.
2 more questions.
You ready? This one's going to be theological. Ooh. Not theological, but controversial. Why are Catholics against IVF?
Catholics are against in vitro fertilization. There's a couple reasons. One, we have to recognize that every person is created in the image and likeness of God, and because of that, there's a certain dignity that every human being possesses. We believe that life begins at conception, at the moment of conception. IVF separates that conception from the marital act, which is not good. Also, there's a lot of problems with IVF in that it's a very novel technology. In order to create the embryo, necessary parts have to be harvested, which of course that's immoral, usually how that happens. They're created, and usually several embryos are created, and some of them are just left in freezers. Some are discarded because there's maybe something wrong, some defect. It's sad, couples that struggle to conceive a child, but we don't actually have a right to have children. So we just, it's not something that we can support.
Last question.
The last question.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if we've asked this one, but it came up again. So
okay.
Who is your favorite saint?
Saint Stanislaus is my favorite saint. He is my confirmation sponsor. He was the Archbishop of Krakow, and he was killed by the evil king Boleslaw the Cruel. I mean, when your parents name you Boleslaw the Cruel, I mean, what do you expect? You're going to be an evil king, I guess. Last year when we went on pilgrimage to Poland, I got to say Mass on top of St. Stanislaus's bones.
Why did you pick
his body's in the...
him as your
Why
favorite?
did I pick St. Stanislaus as my patron saint for confirmation?
I mean,
or
you
as
said
my favorite?
your favorite, yeah.
We did this family research and learned that he's a distant relative. I think it's kind of like how all Scottish people are related to William Wallace and all Irish people are related to St. Patrick.
St. Patrick wasn't Irish.
I know he wasn't Irish. He was
so
Roman.
That was
he was
not
Roman.
Possible.
He went to Ireland to get rid of all that awful paganism. He did defend marriage, though. That's why Boleslaw the Cruel killed him, because Boleslaw the Cruel went and married someone that was already married to another man, and the bishop, like they've done for the last 2,000 years, stood up and said, "Hey, you can't do that, right?" And John the Baptist did it, and they shared a similar fate. So Saint Stanislaus is a martyr, but he's a brave. He was a brave defender of marriage.
All right, thank you, Father Tim, for answering all of those questions.
Absolutely. I love doing this. I hope that it helps y'all to get to know me a little bit better. Again, if you want us to do a podcast,
link is here.
The world's expensive these days, guys.
Yeah, so if you want the podcast, you have to help us make it happen.
This was the third to last episode of the season?
This is the third to last episode of the season.
How sad.
If you like this episode, or if you like 10 Questions with Father Tim, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel.
Ring that bell for the notifications.
Yes, ring the bell. Yeah. And if you have a question for Father Tim that you want answered in a future episode, drop it in the comments.
All right. We will see y'all on Sunday.
See you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.